Welcome to Instruqt Tutorials. In this video, we'll explore adding tasks and gating your content. Tasks are used to validate hands-on skills by having users perform actions inside the sandbox. A task is considered complete when all of its conditions are met. Each condition describes what the user needs to do and includes lifecycle scripts that define how the system checks if it's been done correctly. For writing the description of a condition, focus on the end result that you want, rather than the steps to get there, because there are often many ways to get the same result. Now let's try applying this to our lab. Let's start by creating a file in our main directory called tasks.htcl. Create a resource for task and name it Hello World. The first condition we'll add is file exists, and give it a description of the file /tmp/hello should exist. Now add a second condition, file contains, with a description of the file should contain the text world. Now that we define the task and its conditions, we need to specify what scripts need to be run in order to validate each one of the conditions. We do this by specifying lifecycle hooks on the conditions. Each task condition supports 4 lifecycle hooks. Setup, which runs when the task unlocks and is used to prep the sandbox. Check, runs when the user clicks check and validates the outcome. Solve runs on solve for me and automates the solution. And cleanup, which runs after success or skip and resets for the next steps. You can define multiple scripts per hook to keep logic simple, reusable, or target specific. So let's first add a check block to each of the conditions of our task that will execute scripts when the user clicks the check button. To use a lifecycle hook, we have to specify which script to run by setting the script field with the path to the script file. Let's create a script file named scripts/fileexists.sh and add in this bit of code. Then back in our tasks.htcl file, we need to tell the check of the first condition, file exists, to use the created file by setting the script field to scripts/fileexists.sh. To provide clear feedback when a check script fails, we need to add a failure message. This message appears in the task component for that condition. So we'll add a failure message to the check of the file exists condition and set the message to the file does not exist. Now we'll create another script file called scripts/contentsmatch.sh and paste in this block of code. Let's add it to the check of the second condition, file contains, and set the failure message to the file does not contain the text world. To control how scripts run, you can add a config block to the task. You can override any of these settings in specific conditions or lifecycle hooks. This is especially useful for customizing things like timeouts on longer running scripts. Since all scripts in our task run the same way, we can define the config block once at the task level. Just set the target to the container we want to run them on. For example, resource.container.webserver. This keeps our setup clean and avoids repeating config in each lifecycle hook. Now that our task is ready, let's connect it to our instructions. In pages.htcl, we'll define a new page resource named task and map our task in the activities block, just like we did with the quiz earlier. Then we'll create a markdown file called instructions/task.md and paste some content in there. To embed the task in our markdown page, we'll use the Instruqt task component. Set the ID to match the one we mapped in our activities block. Inside the tags, we'll include the user instructions for the task. Together with the condition descriptions, this is what will instruct the user on what actions to take to complete the task. Then we'll add the created file to the page resource. Right now, our lab includes tasks, but users need a way to perform those actions. To enable this, add a terminal resource named shell so that users can interact with the web server container through a terminal tab. Like a service resource, a terminal resource uses a target field to specify where to connect. To give users terminal access to the web server container, we'll set the target field to a reference, resource.container.webserver. We now have a working terminal on a container resource, but to improve the user experience, we'll configure the terminal's default shell and starting location. Let's set the shell to bin bash for better features like tab completion, and use user share nginx HTML as the working directory to place the user right where they need to edit files. To let users access the shell terminal, we need to connect it to a tab in our 2 columns layout. In main.hcl, add a tab named Terminal, assign it to the left panel, and set its target to resource.terminal.shell. Finally, to display the task page in our lab, we'll add a page block named Task to the introduction chapter. Set its reference to the page resource, resource.page.task. Awesome! Now let's hit Command S to save our work. We'll validate our changes with Instruqt lab validate. Great, everything looks good. So we'll do git add, commit our changes and add a commit message, and lastly, let's push our changes to GitHub. If we head over to play.instruqt.com, we see the latest commit on GitHub matches the status of our lab. Let's start it up. We see our lab now has an additional page in the introduction chapter. Notice that we are not able to navigate past the page with the quiz. This is because the quiz needs to be successfully completed in order for the next page and any activities embedded in that page to be unlocked. So let's solve this quiz, and we see the next page button is now active. The third page displays the task component and the conditions we defined. Let's go ahead and complete the task. Great job! For more information on adding tasks and gating content, head to our documentation page.